They thought it would be just another laugh at someone else's expense. The scissors made a muted, almost delicate snip as they closed around Elena Mori's long, dark hair that had fallen in soft waves down her back, hair her mother braided every Sunday night while humming old lullabies from Okinawa. In an instant, it was gone. Thick strands slid to the polished wood floor like ribbons of silk, and the classroom fell silent. 23 students froze. No one spoke. No one intervened. Not even Mr. Callahan, the advanced history teacher, who blinked once at the sound, saw the aftermath and turned back to his whiteboard without a word. It was 10:42 a.m. on an ordinary Thursday at Danbridge Academy, the kind of elite New England school where alumni portraits line the walls and family names weigh more than grades. And Elena, she didn't belong. At least that's what they told her. She had earned her full-ride scholarship through brilliance, a 4.0 GPA, top national scores, and an essay on post-colonial economics that had left one admissions officer in tears. But none of that could protect her from what the children of CEOs and senators saw as an invader. She was the scholarship girl, the girl with thrift store shoes who caught the public bus at 6:15 every morning to get an extra hour in the library. The girl who didn't flinch when someone whispered slurs in the hallway. And that morning they came for her with scissors. Elena sat in the front row as always, her notebook crisp, her focus sharp. Behind her, Kyle Remington, quarterback, legacy student, and son of the school's most powerful donor, the boy who smiled like a prince and cut like a butcher. He didn't laugh. Not at first. He just sat there after the snip, holding the blunt classroom scissors like they were some kind of trophy. Around him, his loyal court, Landon Voss, Juliet Carrington, and Ethan Joe, shifted in their seats, eyes wide with anticipation. Phones glinted in their hands. This wasn't a prank. It was a performance. And Elena was the target. She reached slowly to the back of her neck, her fingers closing around jagged strands. A silence so thick it felt like drowning filled the room. Then she stood, not with fury, not with tears, with intention. She walked calmly past Kyle's smirk, past Mr. Callahan, who clutched his marker like a lifeline, past the students pretending not to stare. She stopped at the front of the room. "Mr. Callahan," she said, her voice clear and low, "I'd like to report an assault." The word hung in the air like a challenge. Callahan shifted uneasily. "Now, Elena," he mumbled, "let's not overreact. I'm sure Kyle didn't mean anything by it. Boys will be boys." A small laugh escaped someone in the back. Elena didn't blink. "Would you prefer I gather my hair from the floor," she replied, "to help clarify the nature of the assault?" Kyle's smile twitched. Around him, the mood shifted imperceptibly but undeniably. They hadn't expected this. She didn't yell. She didn't plead. She just stood there, with her dignity intact and her voice steady, and began to write the first sentence of a very different narrative. "I'll be filing a police report," she continued, pulling out her phone, "and I trust the school will have the security footage ready when they come asking." Callahan's face turned gray. The marker snapped in his hand. Kyle opened his mouth, perhaps to apologize, perhaps to excuse, perhaps to threaten. But Elena had already turned to the class. "To everyone here," she said, "I want you to remember this, not just what happened, but who watched, who laughed, who said nothing." Her hair, uneven, hacked, symbolic, framed her face like a battle flag. This is not over. And with that, Elena Mori walked out of the classroom, head high, spine unbroken. Outside, the autumn wind caught the loose strands of her hair. They floated behind her like dark embers. The cameras were already rolling, but she wasn't thinking about revenge. She was thinking about the truth, because they thought the scissors would silence her. But they had only given her a sharper edge. By the time Elena stepped off school grounds that afternoon, The video had already escaped the walls of Danbridge Academy. It began, as these things always do, with a single screen recording. Anonymous, shaky, taken by someone sitting in the back corner. It captured the moment the scissors snapped, the muffled gasp from a classmate, the silence that followed. It captured Kyle Remington's smirk and Mr. Callahan's indifference. It captured Elena standing, calm and deliberate, speaking in a voice sharper than any blade. By 3:00 p.m., the video was on Reddit. By 3:15, it had reached TikTok. By 3:27, it had its hashtag, #StandWithElena. But Elena didn't check her phone. She stood alone at the bus stop, her navy uniform blazer pulled tightly against the October wind, trying to focus on something small. A crack in the pavement, the sound of a passing bird, the weight of her backpack. She had promised herself she wouldn't cry. Not for them, not today. A sleek black Tesla pulled up to the curb. Its tinted windows slid down. "Elena Mori?" a woman's voice asked. She turned. The woman behind the wheel looked like she belonged on a magazine cover, not in front of a public bus stop. She wore a cream-colored wool coat, pearl earrings, and the kind of sharp lipstick that whispered power. Elena recognized her from school galas and board meetings she had only watched from a distance. Vivian Remington, Kyle's mother, member of the school's executive board, wife of Richard Remington, the man who had built half of Danbridge's legacy with money no one dared question. "Get in," Vivian said. "This is not a request." Elena didn't move. "I'm fine with the bus." Vivian's tone dropped. "People are watching. Please." There was something brittle beneath the polished exterior. Not panic exactly, but something close. Against her better judgment, Elena opened the door and slid into the passenger seat. The interior smelled like leather and lavender. The silence stretched. "You have no idea what you've started," Vivian finally said, not looking at her. "The video, the attention, the threats of lawsuits. It won't end where you think it will." "Maybe not," Elena replied, voice flat. "But it's going to end somewhere. And that's more than anyone else has tried." Vivian laughed once, a humorless, tired sound. "You think you're the first student to fight back?" she asked. "You think the school hasn't seen this before?" Elena turned toward her, eyebrows raised. "Has anyone else tried?" "Once," Vivian said, eyes fixed on the road. "The Chen family. Their daughter Leah was cornered in a locker room. They had footage, witnesses. Her parents were going to go public." "What happened?" "Within 6 months, Machen lost his job. Their mortgage was recalled. Their daughter's college applications were suddenly rejected. They left the state in silence." Elena said nothing. She felt the chill of the air outside. But this cold was different. "They'll do worse to you," Vivian said softly. "You're not protected. You don't have the money. You don't have the name." "Then why are you talking to me?" Vivian didn't answer at first. She reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a flash drive. "What's this?" Elena asked. Vivian looked at her, and they truly looked at her. And for the first time, the layers peeled back. "My son," she whispered, "is turning into someone I no longer recognize. And I helped build the world that allowed it." She pressed the flash drive into Elena's palm, 15 years of internal files. Every bribe, every cover-up, every family we silenced. My husband, my colleagues, myself, it's all in there. Elena stared at the tiny device. "Why me?" "Because you didn't break," Vivian said. "They tried to cut you down, and instead, you stood taller. Use it. Burn it all down." The car slowed to a stop in front of Elena's modest apartment building. Vivian glanced over one last time. "But understand this. They'll come after everything. Your scholarship, your mother's Gita, your name. If you choose this path, you do not come back." Elena stepped out onto the sidewalk. The Tesla disappeared into the darkening street like a ghost. She looked down at the flash drive in her hand, so small, so impossibly heavy. And then, for the first time all day, she smiled. Not because she felt safe, not because she had won anything yet, but now she had ammunition. The apartment smelled faintly of steamed rice and lavender. Elena stepped through the door quietly, not wanting to alarm her mother, but it was already too late. Yuki Mori was seated at the small kitchen table, still in her hospital scrubs, her dark hair pulled back tightly, her hands motionless around a chipped ceramic mug of barley tea. The television was on in the corner. And on the screen, I dictates Bondi Mandi drinking Elena's face, a still frame from the video, frozen mid-turn. Her butchered hair was visible, her eyes calm and haunting. The caption read, "Elite School Under Fire for Alleged Student Assault in Cover-Up." Yuki didn't say anything. She just looked at her daughter with eyes that had seen too much and dared to hope too little. Elena placed her backpack down gently, pulled out the flash drive like it was something sacred, and set it in the middle of the table. "They cut my hair, Mom," she said, quietly, clearly, in class, while the teacher watched. Yuki's hand reached out instinctively, fingers brushing against the uneven ends of her daughter's hair. She blinked, once, twice, then set the tea aside. "What is that?" she asked, nodding to the flash drive. Elena sat across from her and said just one sentence. "Everything." They opened the family's old laptop, slow, slightly cracked but loyal, and began to read. And what they uncovered in the hours that followed would shatter any remaining illusion that Danbridge Academy was merely a flawed institution. It wasn't flawed, it was engineered that way. The files were meticulously organized, a folder labeled incidents containing internal reports of harassment, marked resolved privately, many with student names blacked out. Dozens of email threads between board members, donors, and administrators discussing how to suppress complaints. A spreadsheet titled Risk Management Forecast that listed students by donor value, legacy status, and potential for public backlash. But the worst was yet to come. There was a file titled Conversion Protocols. They clicked it. Inside, documents outlining how Danbridge intentionally failed special needs and scholarship students, labeling them non-optimal academic contributors, guidelines on how to pressure low-income students into withdrawing through non-lethal deterrence, academic isolation, counselor gaslighting, and surveillance. Correspondence showing that scholarship students were being diagnosed en masse with attention disorders to justify forced medication. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God," Yuki whispered. "I've seen some of these kids at the ER. Adverse drug reactions, anxiety attacks. I thought it was bad luck. I didn't realize it was deliberate." Elena leaned back in her chair, eyes glassy. "They didn't just target me. I was just the next name." Then her phone buzzed. A message. "Unknown number. You have 1 hour to delete the video and issue a written apology. This is your only warning." A second followed. "Your mother works at St. Mary's. Night shift. Gadat's unit. Parking garage. Level B. Amazing how unsafe those garages can be after dark." Yuki read it over her daughter's shoulder. Her face hardened. Not in fear, but in fury. "Forward that to me," she said. "I'm calling the hospital security and the police." "Mom, maybe we should..." "Should what?" Yuki cut her off. "Back down? Let them win?" She stood, her voice trembling with restrained power. "I've been backing down my whole life, Elena. Smiling when doctors assumed I was the janitor. Working triple shifts so you could wear a uniform in that school and not feel like a fraud." She leaned forward, taking Elena's face in her calloused hands. "No more silence. Not from me. Not from you." Then the doorbell rang. 9 o'clock p.m. sharp. Elena walked slowly to the door, checked the peephole. A man in a tailored gray suit stood outside, briefcase in hand. She recognized him from the school website. Jonathan Hartwell, Chief Legal Counsel for Danbridge Academy. She opened the door, leaving the chain on. "Miss Mori," he said with a smile that didn't touch his eyes, "I'm here to discuss a mutually beneficial resolution." "You're here to buy my silence," Elena replied. "We're prepared to offer a full ride, undergraduate through grad school, plus stipend, any Ivy you choose. All expenses paid. In exchange for a public statement. Call it a misunderstanding. Say Kyle is a friend, that no harm was intended, that the school acted swiftly and appropriately." Elena stared at him, then reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. "I hope you like surprises, Mr. Hartwell," she said, her voice smooth, "because I have a flash drive full of crimes and a civil rights attorney in my contacts list. And you? You have 3 minutes to leave before I call the press." His smile faltered. "You don't know who you're dealing with." "No," Elena said, "you don't." She shut the door. Behind her, Yuki placed a blanket over her shoulders, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "You're not alone." That night, they stayed up until 3 a.m., uploading encrypted backups of the files, emailing copies to 3 journalists, and preparing for what came next. A war had been declared, but this time the girl with the uneven haircut was armed with truth. Remington scoffed. "You think a flash drive intimidates me?" "No," Elena said, "but the contents terrify the people who paid you to pretend nothing was wrong." She plugged it into the projector. The first slide was an email. Subject, RE, Managing Scholarship Optics. From Rebecca Langston to Board Committee. "We need to keep Elena Mori contained. Her GPA is making waves. Can we fast-track a counselor diagnosis? We can't have another incident like Leah Chen." The boardroom fell silent. No one moved. The next slide, security footage of an altercation involving Kyle Remington. Grainy, time-stamped, and never reported. The next, a spreadsheet mapping disciplinary actions by income level, reveals that legacy students had a 12 punishment rate compared to 81 for scholarship recipients. Then Elena pressed play on a video recording. It began with Kyle's voice, sharp, entitled, unmistakable. "We're cutting her hair tomorrow. I want it filmed. Dad says she needs to remember her place." Then Juliet, "If she goes public, we'll just say she's unstable. Cry mental health. Who's going to believe a broke girl over us?" No one in the room dared speak. Then Elena stood. "I was humiliated in front of 23 witnesses. You didn't suspend Kyle. You didn't even send him home. Instead, you launched an internal meeting to discuss my expulsion." Langston opened her mouth. Maya raised a hand. "Elena has documented evidence of Title IX violations, civil rights abuses, and federal education fraud. This drive has already been sent to the U.S. Department of Education, the IRS, and 3 media outlets. If you continue, we will escalate." "You wouldn't dare," Remington growled. "I wouldn't need to," Elena answered. "The truth moves on its own now." The doors to the boardroom opened. Federal agents walked in, badges gleaming, expressions unreadable. The lead agent stepped forward. "Richard Remington, Dr. Langston, by order of the U.S. Department of Education and the FBI, we are placing you under investigation for obstruction of justice, embezzlement, and conspiracy to conceal felony assaults." Gasps broke out as the agents moved methodically. Langston stood, shaking. "This is a mistake. Surely this is some misunderstanding." The agent didn't flinch. "We've seen the videos. We've read the emails. This isn't a mistake. It's a pattern." Remington's face contorted. "You think you've won, girl?" Elena looked at him. "No," she said softly. "You already lost. The moment you thought power would protect you from truth." The agents cuffed them both. walked them out as cameras from the waiting hallway crew flashed. Maya whispered, "Well done." But Elena wasn't celebrating, because this wasn't a victory. It was accountability, and it was only the beginning. She looked down at her hands, trembling now, not from fear, but from exhaustion. Her mother touched her shoulder gently. "You're not just fighting for yourself anymore," Yuki whispered. "You're fighting for every kid they tried to erase." Elena nodded. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, it wasn't one-sided. 2 years later, Elena Mori stood behind a podium in the United States Capitol. Her hair had grown out, sleek, professional, parted cleanly to the side. But today she wore it pulled back, leaving visible the uneven line of regrowth that still lingered beneath. A scar in strands, a memory with roots. The seal of the Department of Education gleamed behind her. The hearing chamber was packed. Senators, journalists, activists, students, many of whom had once sat in classrooms like hers, silenced for asking too much, for shining too brightly, for not fitting into the image polished by privilege. She took a breath. "They cut my hair," Elena began, "because they thought they could cut me down." She let the silence breathe. They believed poverty meant silence, that scholarship meant submission, that needing help was permission to be harmed. A murmur swept the chamber. They were wrong. Behind her, her mother Yuki sat proudly in a navy blue suit, the same one she'd worn to Elena's board hearing. She was no longer working triple shifts. After Dambridge's collapse, she had been promoted to Director of Nursing Ethics at a public hospital where integrity mattered more than donations. Next to her sat Maya Torres, now overseeing a national task force investigating abuses in private education. And next to Maya, Maya, quietly dabbing tears from her eyes, sat Vivian Remington, the woman who had once helped hide the crimes, now testifying alongside Elena to dismantle the very culture she helped create. The flash drive Elena had received 2 years ago had become the cornerstone of a national reckoning. The Mori Act, just introduced to Congress, would mandate that any private institution receiving federal funds must create an independent oversight board, report all disciplinary statistics by income and demographic, and enforce immediate expulsion for any staff complicit in covering up abuse. Dambridge tried to bury its secrets in silence, Elena said. But what they didn't realize is that silence is flammable, and truth, when ignited, burns cleaner than any lie. When she stepped away from the microphone, the chamber rose in a standing ovation. Not for drama, but for justice long delayed. Outside on the Capitol steps, a young student approached her, a girl with a backpack too big for her frame, gripping a notebook like it was armor. "They're doing it at my school too," the girl said quietly. "Not the same way, but it's there. The favoritism, the fear." Elena knelt, met her eyes. "Document everything," she said. "Never apologize for being excellent. And when you're ready, I'll help you." That night, back in her modest apartment in D.C., Elena opened her inbox. Hundreds of new messages from students, parents, teachers, survivors, and one from a name she hadn't seen in years, Leah Chen. "You kept going when I couldn't. Thank you." Elena closed her laptop. Outside, the city moved like it always had, but somewhere in another school, another classroom, another silence, a spark had just been lit. And Elena Mori had made sure the world was finally listening. Final message. They tried to cut her down, but instead she grew stronger. When silence is broken by truth, even the most powerful institutions can fall. Never mistake quiet for weakness. Sometimes it's the sound right before a revolution. Let me know if you'd like a version formatted for a video ending, a closing voiceover, or a social media caption.